I never thought I'd see a gun pointed at my pregnant wife's stomach over a few unpaid HOA fines. That moment changed something in me. I stopped being afraid of them and started making them afraid of me. I used to believe suburban life meant peace. Freshly cut lawns, weekend barbecues, neighbors waving at each other from driveways. That illusion cracked the day our mailbox started coughing up HOA letters like a bad joke. My wife Jenna was 7 months pregnant, glowing and exhausted trying to make our little house feel like a home. I was juggling work calls and plumbing repairs, trying to keep up with the endless stream of fines that seemed to appear faster than weeds. First they said our grass was 2 inches above regulation, $50. Then the mailbox paint was fading from the approved color code. $75 more. I paid them because I thought that's what you did. You pay, you comply, you keep the peace. But with every check I sent, another fine followed wind chimes, 2 noisy garden hose improperly positioned trash bin not aligned with the curb at the HOA's sacred angle. At first I laughed at how ridiculous it sounded. Then I met Karen. Karen was the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA mid-50s, blonde bob pastel sweaters, pearls that looked like they came from a discount store, and an ego that could fill a courtroom. She strutted around the neighborhood like she owned every blade of grass. One afternoon she cornered Jenna at the grocery store, smiled that fake sweet smile and said, "Rules are what keep this community civilized, dear. Some people forget that." The way her eyes lingered on Jenna's belly made my skin crawl. It felt like even our unborn child needed HOA approval. When the 5th fine arrived, this one claiming our window glass was too reflective, I snapped. That glass had been there since we bought the house. I called Karen, asked for proof. She smirked, said non-compliance will lead to enforcement action. Enforcement over window glass. I told her to show me the rule book. She didn't, because I'd already read every line. There was nothing about reflection, nothing about wind chimes, nothing about approved hues of beige. So I stopped paying. I told myself if they wanted my money, they'd have to drag me into court. But I underestimated how far they'd go, how far she'd go to make an example out of me. It started with subtle intimidation. I'd catch cars idling near my house late at night, tinted windows, no headlights. Jenna said I was imagining it. Then one of our neighbors texted me a photo, 2 men in black tactical vests marked HOA Enforcement Division standing by our mailbox taking pictures. At first I thought it had to be a prank. Then I saw them again driving slowly past our house in a black SUV. They didn't wave, they didn't blink, they just watched. That's when I realized this wasn't about fines anymore. This was personal. Karen wanted a show. I set up every camera I owned under the eaves by the porch across the yard. I documented everything. If they wanted to play intimidation games, I'd play chess. But even then, part of me doubted myself. One night, lying awake, I whispered to Jenna, "Maybe I should have just paid it. Maybe I'm the one making things worse." She turned to me, eyes soft but tired, and said, "If you keep giving in, where does it stop?" I didn't have an answer. Days passed. The tension grew. Every knock on the door made Jenna flinch. Every time I saw Karen walking her dog near our house, I could feel my jaw tighten. She'd stop, glance at our lawn, scribble something on her clipboard, and smile like she'd just scored a victory for humanity. Then came the day everything exploded. I was under the sink fixing a stubborn leak when I heard Jenna scream, a sound that froze my blood. I dropped the wrench and ran outside. She was standing in the yard, watering can, dropped hands shaking. 3 men in black tactical gear stood a few feet away, radios crackling, bulletproof vests reading HOA Enforcement. One of them, tall, bald, emotionless, had a handgun pointed at my wife's stomach. He smiled. "We warned you. We were patient." The world narrowed to that barrel and Jenna's trembling breath. My heart slammed against my ribs. Neighbors started spilling out onto porches, phones up recording. I didn't yell. I didn't move. I knew one wrong twitch could end everything. I forced my voice steady. "You want the fines, you'll get them." I backed inside, grabbed an envelope I'd shoved in a drawer weeks ago, the latest urgent notice stamped in red. I walked back to the door, slid the envelope through the crack, opened it, and showed them the cash like it was an offering. The man counted slowly, glancing at the cameras under my eaves. Then, without a word, he pocketed the money and left. When the SUV finally disappeared, Jenna broke down sobbing. I pulled her close, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Inside, though, something else was burning a fury sharp and cold. I'd bought safety for a few $100s, but I'd also just bought the rope they'd hang themselves with. I had the footage. The neighbors had the recordings. The HOA had just turned into a criminal enterprise on camera. That night I called my lawyer, then a local news reporter. I didn't sleep. I organized every clip, every timestamp, every letter. By morning it was no longer my problem, it was everyone's. The story hit the news like wildfire. HOA security aims gun at pregnant woman. Within a day, police raided the HOA office. Karen was escorted out in handcuffs, still pretending to be composed. "This is a misunderstanding," she said to cameras, pearls trembling against her throat. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was all there, videos, witnesses, audio. Even the HOA's own emails leaked by one of their board members showed they'd hired an unlicensed private enforcement team to teach the Bennetts a lesson. The court hearings were brutal. The man who aimed the gun was charged with aggravated assault, extortion, and conspiracy. 12 years in state prison, $150,000 in fines, permanent firearm ban. His two partners got 7 years each for aiding and intimidation. And then came Karen: fraud, conspiracy, misuse of HOA funds, authorizing armed intimidation, 8 years in prison, $3.5 million in restitution. She stood in court pale and shaking, the judge's voice echoing, "You abused authority and endangered lives. You will serve time." When the verdict dropped, I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just exhaled for the first time in months. The county dissolved. The HOA froze its accounts and revoked the private enforcement company's license. A transitional committee took over the neighborhood. Karen lost her home, her car, her reputation. Reporters swarmed. Neighbors who once ignored me came forward with their own stories: harassment, bogus fines, threats. It was like pulling weeds. One truth after another came crawling into the light. Jenna gave birth a month later. Healthy baby, quiet nights. I repainted the mailbox myself, the same color Karen once fined me for. When I finished, I sat on the porch swing we'd fixed together and just breathed. There was no dramatic revenge, no movie ending. Just justice, slow, relentless, undeniable. People still ask me if it was worth it, if I'd do it all again, and I always say yes, because sometimes standing up isn't about winning, it's about drawing a line that says, this far and no further. Some people mistake silence for submission. They forget that quiet doesn't mean weak. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone preparing for war.